Good evening. This is the Dolores County Broadcasting Network. And today we're going to have the Cowboy Show. Cowboy Devin Harrison. So, DCTV 4H Evening News Program for May 7th. Boy, time just marches on, doesn't it? May 7th, 2019. The camera person is, I don't know, I don't see our camera person because she has her head buried in her phone. Hannah Faulkner. Video engineer, sound engineer, and producer is Edward. Teleprompter and prompter is Dan. News anchor is Cowboy Harrison. Meteorologist is Cowboy Harrison. And this is your news director, Dan. And now the news.
Welcome to the DCTV 4HKZ News Show. Help us keep our news show on the air by becoming a sponsor. You can buy a sponsorship by calling 970-677-4119. That's 970-677-4119. Now for the news. Hi, I am Devin, and here's our first story from the Journal Herald. Colorado emission goals could help LEAP LPEA cut carbon. Newly approved state goals for cutting greenhouse gas emissions could help lay the groundwork for La Plata Electric Association to meet its carbon goals. The state legislature approved House Bill 1261 last week, a measure aimed at cutting emissions 26% by 2025, 50% by 2030, and by 90% by 2050 from 2005 statewide pollution levels to help address climate change. The state goals are extremely meaningful. Our goals might be met because of the state mandates, said Ron Muir, LPEA's manager of engineering and member relations. LPEA say goal for cutting its carbon footprint by 50% from 2018 levels by 2030. Earlier this year, however, reducing the carbon footprint will likely require LPEA's wholesale energy supplier, Tri-State Generation and Transmission to make changes, or LPEA to seek other power suppliers. At LPEA's annual meeting last week, Tri-State new CEO Dwayne Hiley said his co-op intends to work on meeting the goals set by the state. We want to be clean. We want to do it in a way that keeps costs in control, he said. Investing in renewable energy could help lower the cost of electricity, and Tri-State is making investments in the solar wind generation projects, he said. However, a mix of renewable and fossil fuel generation is important, especially when extended storms keep solar arrays or wind farms from functioning. We should have a billboard that says solar brought to you by coal, he said. Exactly how the state will meet its new greenhouse gas emissions standard is not clear. The emissions rules will be set by Colorado's Air Quality Control Commission, according to the bill. However, Hiley said the electric utilities will be expected to make major reductions in burning coal. The legislature also approved Senate Bill 236 last week, a measure that complements the state's new emission goal. It would require the Public Utilities Commission to review Tri-State's electric resource plans, which would provide new transparency to the co-op's decision, said Erwin Overturf, Deputy Director of Western Resources Advocates Clean Energy Program. The bill also allows electric utilities to refinance fossil fuels power plants throughout low-cost bonds. The bonds are meant to lower the payments on the plants and freeing up funding to invest in other infrastructure such as renewables, Muir said. The bill also instructs the Public Utilities Commission to study how electricity transmitted infrastructure could be managed differently to lower the cost to consumers. Constructing large new transmission lines needed to bring power from new wind farms or big solar arrays to consumers could be one of the major hurdles to meet the state's new standard, Muir said. Building the new lines required negotiation with private and governmental landowners, which can be time-consuming, he said. The legislature also approved other bills aimed at curbing emissions this session, such as measuring that increased application energy efficiency standard, increase the energy efficiency standard for buildings, and improve the quality of the data collected about greenhouse gas emissions, Overturf said. I think this one of the most transformational legislative session that we have on clean energy and climate that we have had in a really long time, she said. This story is from the Journal. Judge lifts injunction on uranium mining in Paradox Valley. A federal judge has lifted a 7-year-old ban on uranium lease in southwest Colorado after a U.S. mining program was shown to have no harmful effect on 4 endangered fish species in the Colorado River. The Department of Energy program to mine uranium in the Paradox Valley area was put on hold in 2011 when the court injunction required an additional environmental review on the potential impacts to the fish. In March, Colorado U.S. District Judge William J. Martinez ruled DOE complied with the court's directive, and he approved DOE's motion to lift the injunction, which barred mining leases at 31 uranium mines on 25,000 acres of the Irvine Mine mineral belt. The main question was whether the water discharged from mining activities might affect the endangered humpback and bonny-tailed chubs, Colorado pike minnow, and razorback suckers. U.S. Fish and Wildlife concluded in its review there was no likelihood that mining would jeopardize or threaten the species' habitat. In 2011, injunction was granted after environmental groups filed a lawsuit in 2008 claiming that DOE's water use analysis that submitted to the Fish and Wildlife in 2008 did not include the water demands of the proposed Pinion Ridge uranium mill. But since then, plans for the mill to be built west of Naturalia stalled, and DOE decided the mill's water should be used in the analysis. In April 2018, the Colorado Department of Health and Environmental revoked the mill's radioactive materials permit after a district court judge concluded that the proposed mill project failed to demonstrate adequate environmental protections. To comply with the court order, DOE did include Pinion Ridge potential water used in revised biological report to Fish and Wildlife according to the order lifting the injunction. But is the response to the recent supplemental biological analysis that wildlife agencies stated that Pinion Ridge was no longer a reasonably foreseeable action that must be considered, and announced that 2008 biological opinion was still accurate in predicting no jeopardy to the Colorado River endangered fish habitat. In court briefing this year, DOE cited company reports for the mill that stated a surge in uranium exploration, mining, and permitting is anticipated if the mill is constructed. DOE went on to say that this statement may have been appropriate at the time. However, since then, various world events happened, e.g. Fukushima in 2011, that contribute to continue the low uranium ore prices, lower than economically feasible for new mining or a surge in mining. Blood planters who argued against the motion to dismiss the injunction were Colorado Environment Coloration Information Network for Responsible Mining Center for Biological Diversity and the Sheep Mountain Alliance. They argued that DOE cannot move or dissolve the injunction without first lodging a new or supplemental administrative record. Martinez rejected the claim and ruled that DOE committed no error. He said assembling an administrative record would take more time and likely be more briefing. The court finds that it would not be in the interest of justice to delay resolution of the matter any further, Martinez wrote. This case is almost 11 years old, and the court's injunction has been in place for more than 7 years. For all of these reasons, the court hold under the unusual circumstance present here that the DOE need not to have assembled to disclose a full administrative record before seeking review of the limited court-ordered reconciliation with SWS. The low price rating at 25 per pound has restricted investment and mining, which typically needs a $6 or more per pound for profitability. Travis Stills, an attorney representing the environmental group, called the ruling disappointing and adding reclamation efforts needed to step up the long abandoned mines. There has been no serious effort to mine, and these mines needed to be cleaned up and come into compliance with the Mines Land Reclamation Board, he said. The story is from the Journal. Smoke rises from prescribed burn northeast of Cortez. Smoke has been visible northeast of Cortez from a prescribed burn in the Hay Camp Mesa area of the San Juan National Forest. The crew with the Dolores Ranger District are lighting underbrush, ladder fields, and forest litter as part of the Southwest Caver burn off Forest Road 556. About 550 acres were burned Monday, and 200 acres were planned for burning Tuesday, said the fire management officer Patrick Seekins. 20 firefighters are conducting the burn with 3 engines, he said. Smoke will be visible until this evening and will dissipate as rain moves through the area this week. The Dolores Ranger District has several prescribed burns planned in the area for May when weather and fuel conditions are favorable. Project areas identified are 2,700 acres in the Lake Canyon near 12 miles east of Dove Creek, 6,127 acres in the Boggy Drawn area, and 3,400 acres in the Hay Camp Mesa area. During burning operations, smoke likely will be visible from areas around Macon, Dolores, Dove Creek, Cortez, and U.S. Highway 491. Between Dove Creek and Pleasant View, smoke may settle into low-lying valleys, and the Dolores River Canyon overnight smoke monitoring will be conducted, and initiations will be scheduled to minimize smoke impacts to communities. This story is from the Denver Post. Swath of legislation reform Colorado's criminal justice system to affect tens of thousands. Denver activist Elizabeth E. Epps never expected to work on legislation with bail bondsmen. She wanted to eradicate their industry after all. Through her organization in Colorado Freedom Fund, she pays bails for people accused of minor crimes so they can leave jail before their trial, but her work with bond industry during the legislative session this year helped has a bill ending cash bails for petty crimes, one of the number of bills passed that altered Colorado's criminal justice system. I don't think it gets stranger than that, she said, but some issues are so important that folks from really different ends of political spectrum can get together and get these things done. That's exactly what happened in a legislative session packed with bills attempting to reform who Colorado imprisons and for how long. State lawmakers passed a wide swath of reform to the state's criminal justice system this session. Changes that affected nearly every phase of the process a person experienced after an arrest. Many of the key bills had bipartisan sponsorships from legislators representing many regions of the state. Amid heated public debate about school sex education, the death penalty, and vaccinations, many of the criminal justice bills drew less attention, but the reform had already affected thousands of Coloradans. especially those who are poor, and will change the experience of tens of thousands more in the years to come. Denise Meaus, a public policy director for the ACLU of Colorado, said she saw the bills divided into two categories: how to keep people out of jail before they've been convicted, and how to keep people out of the prison system who don't need to be there. Many of the changes are similar to progressive movements in the other states to reform criminal justice systems, especially changes to bail, she said. Lawmakers passed bills that reduced personal drug possession to misdemeanors and made it easier to leave jail before trial. Those who were already convicted will face less strict penalties for some parole violations and could gain the right to vote before they finish parole. And once parole is completed, people convicted of certain crimes now have more streamlined way to seal their records. Legislators, activists, and longtime lobbyists said the broad reform was years in the making, but given particular urgency this year because of jail and prison systems bursting at the seams and a Democratic majority in both chambers. Lawmakers considered more than 70 bills that dealt with crime courts and incarceration. Some lobbyists, such as Tom Rines of the Colorado District Attorney's Council, tracked more than 100 bills. In my 15 years at the Capitol, I've never seen anything like it, he said. Lawmakers and government officials have grappled for years over how to solve the state's prison crowding. In Gov. Gerald's Polis budget request for the Department of Correction issues in January, Polis urged the legislators to pass a bill that addressed the underlying causes of overcrowding. As a state, we have made progress on criminal justice reforming, but there is still much work to be done, the budget requested state. At the end of March, less than 2% of the state's 14,506 prisoner beds were available. Departments of Corrections records show the department's budget also near $1 billion for the first time. It struck a chord of crisis for some folk that we need to do something, May said. Criminal justice bills that passed in legislature this session includes reducing personal drug possession of fewer than 4 grams from a felony to a misdemeanor, and eliminating the potential for criminal charges for drug residue effect March 2020. Eliminating cash bail for petty and municipal offenses. Creating timelines for bond hearings and the release of people who post bail in the attempt to make sure people aren't sitting in jail for longer than necessary. The addition of 15 district court judges positions across the state. The creation of a program that will send defendants reminders about court dates via text message. A law requiring jails, prisons, and Department of Human Services facilities to provide free tampons and pads to people in custody. Changes the state's parole system that make it harder for parole board to deny release and to bring persons back to prison for many technical violations. Allowing people to serve parole to vote. The creation of a streamlined process to seal many criminal records without filing for action in civil court. Not all of the bills have been signed into law by Polis, though the majority of the bills have bipartisan sponsorship. Rep. Leslie Herod, D. Denver, who was prime sponsor of the 8 criminal justice bills and worked on a number of others, said the bipartisan support was crucial for success. The central issue of crime, jail, prisons, and reliefs affect every community, she said. She and Senator Patty Lee, P.T. Lee, D. Colorado Springs, partnered with Republicans Representative Matt Soper of Delta and Senator Paul Lundy of Colorado Springs to work on the cash bail ban for low-level offense bills. Everybody has a story about criminal justice reform, she said. Herod went into the session with a specific goal: address addiction, bail, and how people in prison rejoin society. Many of her bills came from people in the community, including EAPs, who told her about their own problems in the justice system. Along the way, things popped up, she says, such as parolee voting and jail tampons. But Ryan, representative and the district attorney, said the Democrats were able to get away with monkey business and overreach because of their majority. Criminal justice reform is not a partisan issue, he said, but described the session as a whole as non-collaborative. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but there is also stuff that is more volatile, like he said. Many of the changes are in line with efforts in other states and to make the courts and correction systems more fair and effective, Mays said. It's something that is happening all over the country. She said it's just a cumulative effort of education and knowledge. And what did you see? What's next? The change in the result of years of education, lawmakers, and public about topics such as bail and challenges people face when they release from prison, Mayo said. The legislative works this year also laid the groundwork for more reforms in the years to come. Next year, the ACLU hopes to tackle prosecutorial reform and expand courts to a 6-day-a-week schedule. May said Herod hopes to continue to work on abolishing cash bails. Ryan said there will likely be bills addressing sex offender sentencing and the habitual crime status. Legislators will also have determined whether the changes made this year were effective. For EPS, the bail abolitionists to reform have changed her work, paying small bonds for people who can't afford the cost. Now, the Colorado Freedom Fund will raise the limit of amount they're willing to pay, and they're going to keep an eye on courts to make sure that they're following new rules. It's such a good problem to have, she said. We'd rather be run out of business sooner than later. It was East's first year working directly on legislation. Even where their bills fell short or key parts of bills were amended, courts and corrections facilities should know that the more changes is coming. Folks are on notice, Eep said. Now for our dumb laws. Our dumb law segments are actual laws still in the books in many states, cities, and municipalities. This means that these laws are technically still legal. Dumb laws in Alabama. Bears wrestling matches are prohibited. Incestuous marriages are illegal. It is legal to impersonate a person of the clergy. It is illegal to maim oneself to escape duty. It is considered an offense to open an umbrella on a street for fear of spooking horses. Women are able to retain all property they owned prior to marriage. In the case of divorce, however, this provision does not apply to men. It is illegal to sell peanuts in Lee County after sundown on Wednesday. It is illegal for a driver to be blindfolded while operating a vehicle. Dominoes may not be played on Sunday. Now with our current weather report. Our current weather data comes from the DCTV weather station located in the beautiful downtown Dove Creek. This current temperature is 64 degrees. The high today was 64 degrees. The low was 42 degrees. The barometer is at 29 and 58 inches and is falling. Humidity is at 20%. Wind is between 1 and 9 miles per hour from the northwest. Gust has been up to 28 miles per hour. There were no hundredths of an inch moisture measured today by the DC weather station. Moisture for the month is 49 hundredths of an inch. Moisture accumulation for the year is 6.45 hundredths of an inch. Now for the Big Mac, Kerosene National Weather Service. There is rain in California and rain and snow. You see rain and snow and rain right there. And from Arizona to the part of Idaho. From Arizona part of there's rains and thunderstorms through there. North, you're going way too fast. Rewind. From Colorado, I can't see. Colorado to Idaho, Colorado to North Dakota, there is rain and snow. From Texas to the East Coast, there's rain and thunderstorms. There's also severe thunderstorms and heavy rain and possible flooding in Texas to Iowa. Here's our exclusive DC TV 5-day forecast. Wednesday, showers likely with a high of 51, low of 36. Thursday, showers likely, high of 54, low of 40. Friday, thunderstorms, high of 57, low of 39. Saturday, also thunderstorms, high of 62, low of 40. Yeah, right there. Yeah, Sunday is actually 62-40 with thunderstorms. Saturday was 60 with 40. See. Now for our snow report, which reports the amount of snowpack in the mountains across the state, and we hope this will be helpful for our farmers and skiers. Here's our southwest. Here in the southwest, we're 176% of normal, which is right here. We are doing pretty good with moisture. Now for our climate change report. CO2 dark carbon monoxide is one considered the greenhouse gas and is one of the principal causes of climate change. This changes CO2 traps heat in the atmosphere, which causes climate instability. This results in significant variations worldwide of moisture and hot and cold temperatures, but the general climate trend is that the planet is slowly warming. Therefore, it's important that we report the CO2 change. The following CO2 numbers are in parts per million. Last week, 414.32. 2 weeks ago is 413.77. Last year it was 409.84. 50 years ago, 10 years ago was 390.36. 50 years ago was 327.34. Thank you, Dr. Peter Tanz of National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and Michael McGee of the CO2.Earth Network for providing this information. Now remember, you can help keep our Kids News Show on the air by becoming a sponsor. You can become a sponsor by calling 970-667-4119. That's 970-667-4119. Thank you. Now back to our news director.
That is the end of today's DCTV 4-HEV news program. This is your news director, Dan, saying good night and thank you for watching.